Hi, so welcome to our first edition of Real Auto Talk. This is a new thing we're doing here at Real Auto Reports, and something that, well, as a car enthusiast, I wanted to just have some conversations with our YouTube audience and with the public out there about different things that we think about with autos, repairing them, taking care of them, living with them, all of those things that are top of mind. So we're going to have some ways for you to communicate with us. So when we do our future Real Auto Talk segments, you can ask us questions and we can answer them right from different channels. So we have our Twitter, of course, we have our Facebook, and I would invite you to send us a message if you have a question about cars or something like that to the hashtag Real Auto Talk, and make sure you post it to our Facebook channel. You can do it on Twitter as well, again, hashtag Real Auto Talk. And as your host, Jonathan McGrew, I am, almost, well, I'll be turning 30 on Black Friday this year, and cars are just a super important part of my life. I love cars, and I think I know why. They symbolize in America, this great country that we live in, this freedom, this independence that we have. They also tend to talk about us. Our vehicles are an extension of our persona and how we feel about the world and issues and ourselves and in the visual perception we want to portray. There are people who love sports cars and have that sports car sense, and they want, something flashy and fun. And that's what Real Auto Talk's all about, is taking into account this perspective of the automobile. And we'll have topic issues after this first introductory one where we talk about different things. I think, this time we're borrowing our loaned 2015 Outlander here from Mitsubishi that we'll be talking about in a real video and a real first impressions video here at Real Auto Reports. But, it got me thinking about all of the vehicles out on the market, especially in the SUV category. And it got me thinking about, what do you really look for in a vehicle, in a new vehicle? And so I wanted to talk a little bit about this time what I see when I'm shopping for a new vehicle and when my friends are shopping for a new vehicle, and the advice that I give them. One of the things that we do here at Real Auto Reports, and something that I've been doing for years just as a hobby, is finding people vehicles, whether it be a classic vehicle or a new vehicle or a slightly used new to you vehicle. There's things that you look for. And as a classic auto aficionado of many brands, here at Real Auto Ranch, where we do all of our vehicles, we have, like, I have a 72 Cadillac Eldorado convertible, and I really am a car enthusiast. We have two mid-70s MGBs that we do drive regularly. In fact, people actually think it's kind of funny because one of them is almost a daily driver for one of the members of our family, and she's normally standing behind the camera. And I grew up with these type of cars. I grew up with a 77 MGB and an 80s Lincoln Town Car when I was little. And then we had the Miata when it came out, and the Maxima. And I started to see the shift in car design and what people were looking for in cars. So when you're shopping for a new car, what are you actually looking for? And what is it that you want to get out of the vehicle? Obviously there's price points out there with cars, and I think that's the thing you have to nail right away. I've been caught by this in my own life, where I want a car, so I start to look around, and maybe I want a certain type of car. And I have an example of this. When my partner and I were first together, we needed a car. We needed an extra car, actually. And so I ended up looking out around like I do with the used cars, and I found a used 80s BMW. Now, I happen to love this car. It was a 318i, 5-speed transmission, cheap and cheerful, was kind of fun to drive, had the crank sunroof. But, we were younger then. That was almost 8 years ago, and I wasn't looking for a high-end car. Well, then that car, had some issues with a service center, and the oil pan ended up falling off it in the driveway. And we traded it in on a used car, and so on and so forth. And we actually, that was before the new Camaros were out, we actually went for one of the not made anymore Camaros. We were looking for a car that was iconic, something that my partner had always wanted, and that's why we bought that car. And we bought the V6 because we were looking for a little bit better fuel economy, but still wanted it to be sporty, and we liked the T-tops, so we had the T-top option, and things like that. But then I fast forward, right, and I've been reviewing cars for a number of years now, and obviously we have our reviews here at Real Auto Reports. And the biggest thing is price when you go to look at a car. Most people have a good idea of what kind of car they want. Like my friend, my very close friend, we'll just call her Ms. M, she was looking for a car several years ago and ended up in a 7-seat SUV. And not unlike this Outlander, but with one of the competing brands. And she went from a 2-door coupe. And one of the things that she was looking for was that flexibility for the future, and cargo room and people room and better drivability in the snow that we get here in Colorado. So she was looking for these things. Here are my 5 tips for how to figure out what kind of car you really want. First of all, you need to decide price. What can you really afford, or what are you willing to afford? Because there's a wide variety of vehicles out there, spanning from the teens. Well, actually, if you look at a Nissan Versa, probably under that, 9,000 and some, but still, you get what I'm saying, 10,000, and then the sky's the limit, right? You can buy $1 million or more car. Now, most of us are going to stick right in, generally, from what I've seen with my friends, is the high teens to the mid 40s is where I see a lot of people buying cars. And really, the cars that we test a lot here at Real Auto Reports will span anywhere from $25,000 to $45,000, and then with the luxury brands, you tend to span from about $35,000 to about $65,000 on a regular. So when you go to look at a car, define your price point and stick to it. That's the key with looking for a new car, or a used car for that matter. Let's call it any car. When you're going to buy a classic, you're going to buy a new car or a slightly used car, you need to stick to your price point, because if you get out of your price point, it colors how you feel about that car. If it starts becoming unaffordable, if you start having trouble paying for it, you don't want to end up in a situation where you hate the payment, you hate the car then, and you just don't want it, and you'll do anything to get out of it, because it just makes that experience that much worse, because then you have to roll the negative equity, or hopefully if it's a used car or a classic car, you won't have some of those issues. Now, so define your price, number 1. Number 2, decide what type of vehicle you want to drive. That's super important, because I've had friends that thought they wanted a 2-door sports coupe and then ended up going back and having to trade it in 6 months later for a 4-door sedan, and so on and so forth. There are people, and even in our own lives, we have owned things like our 4-door Jeep Rubicon that we had for about a year. Well, it ended up not being the type of vehicle we wanted to drive as a daily driver. We wanted it as a secondary or a third car, but at the time when we had it, that really wasn't possible. So we ended up trading it in. And actually, the vehicle that has stuck since then is our 2013 Dodge Charger RT all-wheel drive. And so it's a perfect example of figuring out what kind of car you want to buy and drive on a daily basis. We went with the Charger because it had the Hemi, 370 horsepower, what's not to love. But in Colorado, we wanted the safety and the flexibility of the all-wheel drive to get around in the inclement weather, especially living out here on the edge of town at Real Auto Reports, or Real Auto Ranch, I should say, where they don't plow our roads. We wanted to be able to get out of the neighborhood and out onto the plowed roads without sliding and accidentally ending up in a ditch. And the Jeep was just too rugged, really, for what we needed, because of some of the, things we do with friends and whatever. It was hard for some of our friends to get in the car. Some of our kids, friends with kids, it wasn't exactly the type of vehicle that was as friendly to that. Sure, it was possible and serviceable. So we changed up. Decide what kind of car you want to buy. So define your price, decide what kind of car you want to drive. Sports cars are awesome. My mom drove one every day when I was growing up, when I was little, but my dad had the four-door sedan and was happy to drive it. And that was the vehicle we used to go to the store and the mall and all of that. So it made sense back then, and she could drive a sports car. But if it's your only car, it's super limiting, and you have to decide if you're okay with that. Now, third thing is test drive, test drive, test drive. I cannot tell you how many people I know walk in, get excited by the shininess of a new car, and they don't test drive it several times. Having driven so many of these cars for these reviews, I can't tell you enough how test driving changes your perception of the car over time. And as you drive a car, you end up noticing things you wouldn't have noticed in the first 10 minutes. And that is the trick with looking at cars, is that they can really fool you by the excitement you have about looking at a new car. So make sure you go and you test drive. Test drive the car during the day. Then go back and make sure you do it in the evening hours when you need the headlights on and you need to find everything on the dash when it's dark in the car. Bring some friends along to distract you so that when you're driving, you can tell if you're comfortable with stuff going on in the car and you can see out and you can drive. Most of all, don't let the dealer force you into a short test drive. Make sure you get the type of experience that you do regularly. If you need to go into a busy parking lot to see if you can deal with the way the car steers into a parking space, do that. If you need to parallel park, do that. If you need to drive out on the highway and if getting up to speed and passing and those type of things are important with you, make sure you do it, and don't do it just once. I know that buying a new car is exciting, and even I get into that mode where I want it right now no matter what. But I'll tell you, if you can be patient, that third rule will save you a ton of money, and it'll save you being unhappy with the car you buy. And that goes for new or used and even classic cars. It's no good having a classic car that you hate to drive unless you're just going to park it in the garage and let it appreciate. So make sure you drive it. And sometimes we get pressured into sales because of finite resources and availability. But do yourself a favor and remember that there's lots of cars made every day, and there's probably another one like the one you want to buy in most cases, not all. Now, 4 is option groups. Don't settle for a car that doesn't have the options that you want. And this gets hard if you're buying at the economy end, but even economy cars have different packages that you can buy that have features that you're looking for. Don't settle unless you just are really in a bind. And I say this because if you really want navigation in your car and you're like, oh, I'll just get it aftermarket, you know what? Most of the time people don't. And if you are going to do that, make sure you set the money aside for the aftermarket system before you go buy the car. Don't try to buy the car and then think you'll have the extra money later. That doesn't always work out, especially then trying to find a system that you like, and it takes time, and then maybe it's not as usable as you thought it was. Sometimes it's better just to get it integrated into the car, because that's why they have those option packages. Also, things like park assist features that you really need. Park assist or safety features like blind spot monitoring. This Outlander doesn't have it. For a lot of people with a 7-seat passenger capacity, with that many people in the vehicle, blind spot monitoring can be very helpful because the people create more blind spots in the back of the car. So make sure you have the features you want. If you like climate control, make sure you have it. If you like heated seats, make sure you have it. If you need blind spot monitoring or want those safety features, get it. Make sure it's there, because the happier you are with your car, the better you are going to have a chance of keeping it for the long term. And sure, everybody likes a new car, but what I find is nobody likes shopping for them. There's very few people out there that love going to a dealer to find a new car, because it's kind of a difficult decision. And when you're buying with other people in your family, say your wife or your husband, or for your children, there's a lot of factors that go into buying a car. So it's not everybody's favorite thing to do. So if you can keep a car for 3, 5, 7-10 years, and you're really happy with it and it's serviceable and it has quality control, that you like it, it doesn't need a lot of maintenance, then you're going to be super happy with your purchase decision and you're going to come to be a real enthusiast of that car brand. Now, my final tip is check up on the vehicle from a reports perspective. Ask people who have the vehicle. Watch video reviews on YouTube, not just Real Auto Reports. Go out and see what people are saying about the car that you're looking at. Go to Consumer Reports. And you know what? If you don't want to pay for the Consumer Reports, find somebody who you might know that has it and ask them if they could look that car up for you. I do that for my friends all the time because they don't need the magazine all the time, but I read it because I'm interested. That information's critical. I had a friend who was buying a Miata. She wanted to know what years, and actually started out looking at a Mini. She wanted to know what years she should look at and which ones had less problems because she really didn't want to be in the shop all the time, but she wanted to buy one used. The research is important. And if you can't do the research yourself, find a friend. Send a note to people like us here at Real Auto Reports, and we'll help you out. We'll give you our opinion. Leave a message on our Facebook channel, and we'll maybe even do a Real Auto Talk on that vehicle. So for our first Real Auto Talk here at Real Auto Reports, we hope that you'll come back and join us for more conversations. And we hope these 5 tips for thinking about buying a new car or a used car or a classic car will help you. Again, make sure you find your price point. Set that and stick to it. And then make sure you figure out what kind of vehicle you want to drive. And think about it hard. And it might take doing the 3rd step to figure that out, which is test drive, test drive, test drive. Different situations, multiple times. The dealer may not love you for it, but they will when you sign the check to pay them for the car. So don't worry about it. They're there to help give you a good buying experience. Then, of course, there is the last 2 that I talked about, which are the feature sets of your car, important for happiness and longevity in the vehicle. And then research, research, research. Do your research on the vehicle. Make sure you know what kind of maintenance there is, especially on used cars. Make sure you know. But also look at what people are saying about the new ones and about the different experiences, and see if you have friends who have recently bought cars that are similar to yours. Or look out on the forums, the chat boards, the car forums for the brands and the vehicles that you're looking at. I know it sounds like it takes a lot of time, but the longer you can keep the vehicle and be happy with it every day, the more you will want to be a part of that experience and have something that you can drive every day that you're proud of and that is a personification of you and your values. So, I'm Jonathan McGrew, again, right here for Real Auto Reports. We're having our Real Auto Talk segment, and we'll bring more of these to you down the road. So make sure you come back and join us for future Real Auto Talks. Leave us some questions you have. Tell us things you want us to talk about from the automotive perspective. We have access to the media people. We have access to the auto shows. We have access to friends who are doing this job as well, reporting on cars. So make sure you send us your questions. Remember, hashtag Real Auto Talk on our Facebook channel. Make sure you go to our YouTube and leave comments on this video for future topics or on this one. And don't feel any compunction at not coming to us via email or Twitter. So we'll put up all of our details, and we hope you come back and join us soon.